If you clicked on this video, you're probably an ambitious person and you want to make a lot of money. A lot of people don't want to admit that they do, but if we're honest with ourselves, it is the truth. But you have all of these goals and ambitions, and yet you keep finding yourself succumbing to the bad habits like fapping over and over. You can't control your lust, and therefore your goals are unfulfilled. This is a sad reality for a lot of the guys in our space, and I promise you that if you watch this video to the end, I will help you fix this problem. I want you to imagine two guys. The first guy is the normal guy. He doesn't really know about self-improvement. He might go to the gym like once or twice a week. But other than that, he scrolls on TikTok, he eats junk food, and he thinks that fapping is just normal. Just your average guy, right? And the second guy is very similar to us. He consumes content like this, he is disciplined, he exercises 6 times a week, he meditates, he journals, he knows about all of the negatives of fapping like being lethargic and the dip of motivation you get after, and so on. Now I want you to imagine that both of these guys reset their NoFap streak. Which one of them do you think is actually gonna experience more of the negatives all of these NoFap influencers are telling us about? The answer should be both of them, right? But not really, because the first guy who doesn't really know about all of the negatives isn't really gonna experience them. Sure, he might feel a little tired, but he'll just go about his day normally after. Whereas the second guy is now gonna make himself feel shameful. He will start feeling tired and he'll end up getting really negative thoughts that destroy his self-image. This is a self-fulfilling cycle. You reset your NoFap streak, you start getting negative thoughts that convince you that you are a fapper, and then you fap even more. And by the way, I'm not saying that it's okay to fap. I'm just saying that you shouldn't obsess about it like a lot of these guys in our space do. Because if you fap and then just forget about it and go about your day like the first guy did, you would be 10 times more successful than you are right now, because it isn't the water that destroys the iron, it's its own rust. You can pour water on iron all day long and nothing will happen, but if you keep the water on the iron, then the rust will come, which destroys the iron. So think about this, it's not really the fapping that gives you all of these negative feelings, it's the thoughts you get after. And if you keep watching all of these NoFap videos where the fucking evil influencers are telling you about all of these negatives of NoFap, you will not only end up fapping more, but you will also get way more negative thoughts after. This is their whole business model. They tell you about how NoFap is great and that you'll be able to fucking levitate on day 100 of NoFap. And then they know that if you reset your NoFap streak, you will feel bad about it. And then you'll come back to them for advice and you'll keep watching their videos over and over again to make them more and more money. So all of these NoFap influencers are basically just profiting from your suffering. So how about you just adopt the thinking of the normal guy and just accept that sometimes you might fap, which, you know, it isn't the best use of your time, but you just don't overthink about it after. Because you don't want to be obsessed about it like all of these NoFap dorks. You never wanted that. In the end, you just wanted to live a better life than the average person. And how are you gonna do that if you keep neurotically thinking when are you going to next ejaculate? And then, if you end up actually doing it, you'll be depressed about it. In this case, NoFap is actually going to make your life worse. But now you may be thinking, okay, that's cool, but how can I actually control my lust? I know how to make it so that I don't experience these side effects, but I still want to know how I can stop fapping, because I don't want to be a fapper for life, and that's totally valid, so I'm gonna give you 3 of the most useful tips so far. Number 1, get busy. Like I said, the real goal of NoFap was never so that we can obsess about it through the day. It was to have more time and attention so that we can focus on things we really want from life. What we really wanted from life was not to not fap, it was to have a purposeful online business that gives us freedom. It was to have more friends. It was to get really hard into fitness and become athletes. Those were the real goals. The goal was never to not fap. The goal was to increase our life's enjoyment. Now here's the interesting thing. If you actually focus on those big goals, you'll naturally fap less because you'll be more busy. And also, these goals will develop you and make you respect yourself more, delay gratification, and give you a healthy source of dopamine and pleasure. So just go hard on the goals that you want anyway. And when you're busy, especially with some sort of a deadline you've set yourself, you're probably not going to fap. Because imagine this, you're probably not gonna have a massive fap session on a day that you have to turn in some sort of an assignment. You're not gonna waste your time if you know that you have a deadline. Because if you're just so busy, you have to focus on that thing first, right? If you know that you have this essay or this homework or this exam, you're probably not gonna like jack off 5 times in that day. For example, me, I have a deadline right now to upload this video in time, so I'm not gonna go randomly waste my time on some porn app or something like that. So give yourself deadlines for your own goals. You pick a goal, like for example, I want to get to $1,000 a month, or I want to get to 100k subscribers. So I'm gonna make this really awesome video and I'm gonna upload it to my channel before 8 p.m. tonight. And when you come home home from school or work. Suddenly you got this deadline and you think to yourself, well, I should go and accomplish that instead of just sitting around edging or something like that. Because I've got this deadline that means a lot to me, and I also know that I'm gonna feel way better after. Because if you think about it, the pleasure you get from achieving your goals is the real pleasure. Because it feels kind of hard right now, but once you've done it, you'll literally feel better forever. Whereas the pleasure you get from fapping is actually fake pleasure, because it only feels good right now, and weirdly, it will make us feel worse in the long run. And so start prioritizing your goals, because that actually improves your life. If you basically just stay busy, you will accomplish more, and you'll naturally just have less time to fap, which is a win-win in my opinion. So you probably already have a goal, but if you don't, just think to yourself, what is something cool I could accomplish that will actually make me proud of myself? And then basically just dedicate yourself to achieving that goal. Think to yourself, what's the work task that I could try and do every single day, and add it to your daily schedule. This will help you stay busy, and therefore you'll waste less time sitting around fapping all day. Number 2, set goals. You've probably heard this advice before. Just set some goals to not fap. But the thing is, that doesn't work. Just think about how many times you failed No Nut November. Setting a goal to not fap for a certain period of time won't work, because that way you just end up thinking too much about it, which causes you to fap even more. So while we do want to set goals, we should not do it like this. The way I'd recommend doing it is that you use the 2 tips I mentioned before. You stay busy, and if you fap, you fap. You don't overthink about it, and you just go about your day normally. And you do this for 1 month, and at the end of the month, you try to estimate how many times you fap. Some guys even count it, so it's more accurate, but you don't have to do that. So for example, this month you counted that you fap like 20 times. So next month, you set a goal, and you will try to fap like 15 times. And then the next month, you'll fap like 10 times, and so on. You'll basically progressively deload the fapping. You've probably heard of progressive overload. That's a term used mostly in the gym, where you basically just add some weight to your lifts every 1 to 2 weeks. This way you make sure you keep making progress and getting stronger and building more muscle. And we basically need to do the opposite. We basically need to progressively deload the amount of times we fap in a month. And if you do it this way, you'll actually end up making real progress, and you're not gonna be doing it in an obsessive way like all of these NoFap incels do. So instead of making goals like get to day 100 of NoFap, you set a goal to reduce the amount of faps you do in a certain month by like 25% every month, because this is a much easier and healthier way to go about it. Number 3, create a new identity. You need to start seeing yourself in a completely different way. Instead of just trying to quit fapping, what if you start seeing yourself as the new tier version of yourself, and you start believing that you are simply a guy who doesn't fap? You basically just condition your mind to think that fapping is for the lower tier guys who you are no longer a part of. One of the fastest improvements I ever had was when I started to associate bad habits like this with guys who are lesser than me. And you could argue that, oh no one is lesser than anyone and whatever. But if you're really honest with yourself, you could look at a guy and within a few seconds you can tell if you're better than him. You could call this toxic, but that's just how the human mind works. So whenever you get an urge to do a bad habit, just think about some dork from school doing it, and realize that if you succumb to this bad habit, you're no different to him. And think to yourself, I'm already way past that point, so I'm not going to do it. This will actually help you make way faster progress, because if you start believing that you're already that version of you that you want to be, you will end up acting more like that new version of yourself, which ends up changing your self-identity from this loser who worries about fapping to a guy who just doesn't fap, because it's just no longer a part of his identity. Alright bro, that's it for today. Make sure you subscribe to this channel, share this video with a friend who needs to hear it, like this video, and do all of that other YouTube stuff. Go join my Discord server with the first link in the description, and bye.